Cypress Development Corp's flagship lithium project is located just east of Albemarle's Silver Peak mine in the heart of Clayton Valley, Nevada. A 12-hole exploration drill program for lithium-enriched claystone on Cypress's 100% controlled properties is now underway. Cypress Development Corp trades on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol CYP, the Pink CYDVF, and on Frankfurt C1Z1. For more information, please visit our website, cypressdevelopmentcorp.com.
Welcome to the Goddard Report. Comments made on the Goddard Report and TalkDigitalNetwork.com are an expression of opinion only. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is investigative reporter Spencer Fernando. You can find his articles at SpencerFernando.com. Welcome back to the show, Spencer. Good to be here. Spencer, something that lit up social media yesterday was the fact that the Trudeau government gave $12 million to Loblaws to upgrade their refrigerators. This is a company that made $800 million. It's owned by one of the very richest families in Canada who are probably worth billions and billions. Do they really need $12 million from the taxpayers to make their refrigerators more efficient?
No, they definitely didn't. And again, I think this just, again, shows for people what a fraud the carbon tax is. I mean, they tax regular Canadian taxpayers, take money out of our pockets, and then they go and they give money to a massive corporation, which, I mean, it's owned by billionaires. You think they could afford $12 million to upgrade some of the refrigerators. So it's a total joke. I mean, I don't know how anyone can take it seriously at this point.
And somebody else pointed out that, is this a habit? I mean, Loblaws has already admitted that they fixed the price of bread for a decade, so they're still under investigation for that. Do they like to give money to companies that somehow end up under criminal investigation?
It seems like it. I mean, you've got SNC-Lavalin, then you've got Loblaws. Yeah, they just seem to, I mean, I've been saying for a long time that Trudeau serves the elites, not regular Canadians, and people maybe disagreed when I was saying that a few years ago, but I think everyone agrees with it now, because it's become pretty obvious that they screw over regular people, and then they give our tax dollars to people who already have loads of money and big-time connections. So, yeah, it's all who you know, and it seems like nothing else matters to them.
Why you would think now with the spotlight on them because of the SNC-Lavalin controversy that they would be a little more aware of the optics of what they're doing. Do you think this is a government showing its ignorance of how things work out?
I think so. I think they got such a free ride for so many years that I think now that everything they do is actually being scrutinized as it should be. I don't think they really know how to respond. I think McKenna assumes, I'll just go out, I'll say climate change 5 times, I'll say climate action plan, and then people will be like, oh, great job. But now people are actually looking at it and saying, why are you giving this money to this company that obviously doesn't need it? And they seem to not really know what to do when they're actually getting real scrutiny.
And if you're going to give money to people to upgrade their refrigeration systems to be more environmentally friendly, wouldn't it have been better to have some kind of grant program to the regular Canadian who can't really afford to do that?
Well, you'd think so, but common sense doesn't seem too common with this government, so they wanted to do it in a way that they could go hold a big press conference and get a lot of attention, and it backfired badly on them.
And now, of course, they have news conferences almost daily announcing things like Canada will be part of the moon mission. Well, the original moon mission, a third of the people working for NASA were Canadians who were let go when they canceled the Aero project. So Canada has already, been very active. The only difference is we may get a Canadian on the moon, but they never said we'd actually get to have Canadian feet on that piece of dust.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're desperate, it seems, to try to throw out anything they can. I mean, there's the moon thing, and then, I think what was the most recent thing is that climate report. That was really just a rehash of old reports saying somehow climate change is apparently affecting Canada worse than any other country. I mean, that story lasted about a day. I think people can see right through it. So, it seems like they're trying, and then the lawsuit against Scheer, that's the latest one, which also has backfired. So, I don't know. I mean, maybe Gerald Butts is actually the smartest guy in the PMO, because now that he's gone, they seem like they're even more incompetent.
And with this threatened lawsuit against Andrew Scheer for statements he made, would it be a mistake for the Trudeau people to say, well, let's go ahead, let's dance, let's go to court?
Oh, for sure. I mean, that's if you look at question period and what everyone's saying. I mean, the Conservatives keep saying, okay, yeah, take us to court, we're waiting. And the Liberals keep... And what they're trying to do now is they're trying to claim that Scheer edited tweets, even though you can't actually edit tweets on Twitter. They're trying to claim that he edited and deleted tweets because they put him on notice. That's the message they've been using today, which really seems like what they're doing is they're planning a way so they can kind of walk back the lost threat and say, oh, we didn't need to take him to court. We succeeded in changing his behavior. So they're kind of trying to climb down and not look like total fools for their supporters. But yeah, if it went to court, I mean, Trudeau would actually have to explain himself in a process that he doesn't have control over, which I don't think would work out too well for him. So they're really backing down from that. And, yeah, again, everything they seem to be doing lately just backfires badly for them.
Well, I also recall when BC Premier Glenn Clark was sued for slander, he won because the judge ruled he had limited privilege, although his statements were not made within the legislature, that as premier, he still had limited privilege outside the House because he was speaking as premier. And, of course, in Canadian common law, we use precedents, and I could see Mr. Scheer saying that although these statements were made outside of the House, I was speaking as Her Majesty's Leader of the Loyal Opposition, which, again, could give him limited privilege.
Well, yeah, I mean, if we go down the route of suing everybody for everything, then where do you draw the line? Because the Liberals are calling Scheer a liar. So Scheer could say, oh, you libeled me by calling me a liar. They're saying things about white supremacy, trying to link that somehow to Scheer, which is pretty insane. So he could be suing them for that, right? I mean, politicians say terrible things about each other all the time. That's just part of the nature of politics. So, yeah, we start suing people for saying bad things about you and you're a politician, probably going to look back and find you said something about someone they could sue you for. So, yeah, and again, the Liberals, they really seem like they're backing down on this one pretty quick.
But the mere fact that they put him on notice, did they think that this was what they call a strategic lawsuit to prevent protests?
Yeah, I don't know what they were thinking. Maybe they thought it would scare other people into not talking about it. But I mean, again, it's, you know, in a relatively free country like Canada, when you try to shut people up, especially when you're the government, you try to use those tactics. It really just makes people want to go after you even more. So, again, I mean, they seem like they're flailing around. And then we saw last week when Poilievre kind of trapped Trudeau, and Trudeau said, you know, oh yeah, Jody Wilson-Raybould told me she was uncomfortable with this, and I never went any further. But Trudeau had previously said that Jody Wilson-Raybould never told him she had any concerns about it. So he revealed himself as a liar. So how can he sue Scheer with Scheer calling Trudeau a liar when Trudeau walked into a trap that proved he's been lying the whole time?
Well, isn't the SNC-Lavalin thing about bullying and intimidation?
Yeah, I mean, it's, again, and this is the thing, the kind of the logical problem, or lack of logic, what the Liberals have been saying, is they kept saying, it was her decision and we didn't interfere with her decision. Okay, so her decision was to respect the decision of the independent public prosecutor who said that the SNC-Lavalin didn't qualify. Okay. But now they're saying that it's still open to discussion, and the new Attorney General is saying he's considering it. So it wasn't her decision. If she made the decision, they didn't accept it, got rid of her, and now they've just pretended she didn't say no, and they're still looking into it. I mean, obviously they haven't accepted her decision, but they keep using that same language, which is, it's a total logical fallacy. And yeah, everything they've done this whole time, their stories changed numerous times. They're trying out different talking points. It doesn't work now. A lawsuit threat. It just really seems like that they know the truth is terrible, and they're doing everything they can to avoid it.
Have the Conservatives ever said that they would get rid of this deferred prosecution agreement law?
I haven't heard them say anything about that. No, I think what they've said is they would respect what the prosecutor has ruled in this case, so they wouldn't be giving it. But no, I mean, there's probably a lot of support from the Conservatives for the law itself in the first place, because I know it's something that some of the business community have been asking for. But the problem is that the way the government is, there was no public debate on it. There was no discussion between parties even. And SNC-Lavalin knew that the deferred prosecution legislation was being snuck into the omnibus budget before Liberal MPs even knew it was there. So that kind of tells you the kind of insider access it seems the company had and who the government was actually working for.
We'll have more with Spencer Fernando right after the break.
Arctic Star Exploration, operated by a team of proven mine finders, is focused on diamonds in Finland and the Northwest Territories of Canada. Work programs are underway in Finland and Canada. Arctic Star trades on the TSX Venture Exchange symbol ADD, on Frankfurt symbol 82A1, and the OTCQB symbol ASDZF. Please visit our website arcticstar.ca or call us at 604-689-1799.
Grand Portage Resources recently completed the 2018 drill program on its 100% controlled Herbert Gold discovery property located in the prolific Juneau Belt in southeast Alaska. Drill results are expected through late 2018. Past drill results included numerous multi-ounce gold assays on multiple veins. Grand Portage trading symbols are GPG on the TSX Venture, GPTRF on the OTCQB, and GPB on Frankfurt. For more information, please visit our website grandportage.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Spencer Fernando. Spencer, is there any noise happening with the People's Party of Canada?
Yeah, I've seen a few things on Twitter. It seems like they're having some internal squabbles and issues, which, I mean, it's not really a big surprise with the new party. It's also, and that's the challenge of a party that's kind of more libertarian, is if you're talking about, everyone kind of speaking freely and sharing their perspective, then, I mean, that is, part of that does create some infighting. And the other problem it seems they have is, and it does seem to happen to new parties on the right end of the political spectrum, is unfortunately you do get the kind of the far right extreme people who try to take it over. I don't think Bernie's going to let that happen. I think he'll quash that. But I mean, it's certainly a challenge they're going through. There's some extreme people who are going to make an effort to use it as a vehicle to push their own agenda, and that needs to be dealt with.
Is it a good idea to have a party where the individual members are allowed to have more of a say instead of following just a strict party line?
I think so. I think that's much better for democracy. I think what just needs to happen is there needs to be a discussion in the country, and leaders need to just say, look, you want more democracy, you want your MPs, your candidates to represent you. Well, the flip side of that is there is going to be more inter-party squabbling. There are going to be more problems. So you have to just, I think, explain to people that, you get more democracy, then you're going to have more of what seems like chaos as well. But, I mean, a lot of countries, they manage to function very well with their political system, even with fighting within their own parties or leaders being criticized. As long as a political party can agree on a budget, they can agree on a few basic ideas, then there's nothing wrong with almost everything else being up for discussion, because that's what democracy is supposed to be.
The IMF has slashed Canada's economic growth forecast for the year. Did they say why that they don't think Canada's economy will do all that well?
I haven't seen that they've said too many reasons, at least in the report I looked at, of why they cut the forecast for Canada. For the world, they've talked about certain trade disruptions, still concerns with China, some of the credit issues there, tariffs in Europe, and different problems. I have seen other people talking about Canada, and one of the main concerns continues to be investment in the energy industry. There was a report a few days ago saying the industry is projected to lose up to 12,500 jobs this year. Investment still fleeing the country. And I think there's a lot of stuff that's really up in the air with regard to the election. I mean, there have been people saying that if the Conservatives win, we'll probably see a flood of investment back into the country. But since the election obviously hasn't been decided yet, people are holding off. And I mean, again, it's the big problem Canada has is you look at Canada, you look at the States, okay, pretty similar workforces in terms of education and skills. But you have in the U.S. Much more pro-business environment, lower taxes, no carbon tax, fewer regulations. So if you're picking between, and a much bigger market. So if you're picking between the two countries, then for a lot of investors, they're looking at the States and saying, well, that's the best place to make money.
What can Canada do to improve the situation?
Well, getting rid of the carbon tax would be one of the key things. That's, I think, job number one. Also, the regulatory regime for energy projects needs to be totally streamlined. It now takes, I think, about twice as long in Canada to get projects approved. On the last 3 years, the U.S. has approved, I believe it's 3 pipelines, and they're already starting to build them. Canada only has 1 submission for a pipeline, and even that hasn't been decided on yet. So it's stagnating here, growing in the States, and yeah, the process needs to be streamlined. You can't really have a successful country economically if you can't actually build anything.
Do you think Canada relies too much on courts to make its decisions?
I think so. Again, if a project, somewhat, but the issue is the government is using tools that they have. They can declare projects to be in the national interest. And the Liberals, for political reasons, aren't doing that with a lot of the pipeline projects. It's funny, they'll claim it's in the national interest, but then they won't actually use the provision the government has to declare it officially it's in the national interest. So trying to have it both ways, and it doesn't obviously work. So, yeah, the government, I think, needs to use the tools it has. The argument I always make to people is these delays are totally artificial. If there was a big world war in Canada and needed to pump a bunch of oil in an emergency, these pipelines could be built in, to be honest, within weeks right now. The skills, the workers, the material, the ability, all of that is there to build these pipelines extremely fast, and the government needs to get it done, declare it in the national interest. But for political reasons, I don't think that's something the Liberals are ever going to do, so it'll take a new government to do that.
Stephen Harper was in power for a decade. Why didn't he get this stuff done when he was there?
Well, he did get, that's one of the myths, right? He certainly had some trouble getting some pipelines through, but they did get 4 pipelines completed in addition to some expansions. So, it's not fair to say that they didn't get any pipelines through. That's the talking point the Liberals have used, but it's not correct. Harper did have a lot of problems with the courts. They were trying to reshape the approval process. But again, the other thing is that everyone forgets the Conservatives were in power for about 10 years, but they only had a majority for 4 years. So they only really had kind of the ability to reshape the system as they saw fit for 4 years. Much of the other time they had to make compromises, lots of things they couldn't do because their other parties wouldn't agree to it. So yeah, they never really had a super long chance to do what they wanted to do. So I think it would have been interesting to see what would happen if they had more time, but I guess we'll never know.
We'll have more with Spencer Fernando right after this.
I'm Douglas Mason, CEO of Naturally Splendid, symbol NSP on the TSX Venture Exchange. Naturally Splendid is a biotechnology and consumer products company focused on the global cannabis and health markets. Naturally Splendid is expanding distribution in this rapidly growing market with products currently in Canada, the USA, South Korea, Germany, and Australia. To view our comprehensive company presentation and for more information, please visit our website at naturallysplendid.com.
Don't miss out. Stay informed. Receive the HowStreet.com weekly recap with thought-provoking podcasts, radio, and articles delivered to your inbox. Sign up for the HowStreet.com weekly recap on our homepage at HowStreet.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Spencer Fernando. Spencer, do you think immigration will be a big issue in the next federal election in October?
I think so. I think particularly the legal immigration problem. I think most Canadians are pretty supportive of legal immigration. Although, again, it's interesting. There really isn't the kind of debate that's happening in the country that really should be happening. Because if you look at all the polls, almost nobody in Canada says they want higher immigration numbers. Most people say they want either the same as now or lower. But what's the government doing? They're massively increasing the numbers. So that's a conversation that has to happen. And I think what's unfortunate is the Liberals, anyone who says, we need to cut immigration, they insult them and say, you're a bigot or you're a racist or whatever. But the majority of people in the country want either the same or less immigration. So you're basically insulting 80% of Canadians when they say that. But I think, again, the big issue right now is the illegal border crossing problem. That needs to get fixed. The loophole needs to be closed in the safe third country agreement. It's obviously being exploited. That's people fleeing from the United States is not at all what that was for. And that needs to be fixed. But also there needs to be a conversation on overall immigration levels. I think, there's nothing wrong with saying immigration in Canada should maybe be 150,000 a year or 200,000 a year, as opposed to what's going up to 350,000 a year. People, have to realize that for a country of 37 million people, immigration of 350,000 a year, that's massive. I mean, the U.S. is having a big debate. They'll have 1 or 2 million people come in, and for a much larger country, and that's a much smaller proportion of their population coming in every year, and they're having huge debates over immigration. We have immense amounts of people coming in as a percentage of the country's population, and not really any debate about that. So I think that's something that needs to be put on the table as well.
Well, isn't that like a city of Victoria moving into Canada every year?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Canadians were never really asked about that. I mean, I think it's probably controversial, some people would say, but I think certain things like immigration numbers should be put to a national referendum, or at the very least, town halls and national conversations about it. Because, immigration influences a nation, it changes a nation, and I think people should have a say in that.
Well, one of the issues we have in the lower mainland of Vancouver is affordable housing. Right now, we are seeing tent cities pop up, not because these people are jobless. They have jobs. They have the money to rent apartments. There are no apartments to rent. Mm-hmm. Where do we put these extra people? Physically, where do we put them?
Exactly. That's the problem. And I think there was a government report that came out. Obviously they didn't release it themselves, but an internal government report said high levels of immigration to Canada are starting to have a serious negative impact on the country's resources. Because most people, look, I'm the son, my father was an immigrant, so I totally support legal immigration, but it has to be managed, and there has to be a reasonable level every year. You can't overburden taxpayers. Because the problem is, in many cases, people come to the country and they'll be on welfare or social assistance for a fair amount of time. So you have a lot of people who come in, and there's a taxing of resources. Taxpayers have to pay for it. And, many people integrate and succeed, but it has to be done, I think, slowly. If you bring in too many people all at once, then it taxes the system. And we're obviously seeing a negative impact. And the big irony is, when you have a system of immigration that's common sense and managed, you bring in a reasonable amount of people, then that's what keeps support in the general public for the idea of legal immigration. When you flood the country with tons of people all at once, that's when I think regular people say, well, this system isn't working, so they start turning against immigration in general. So the very people who claim they're so pro-immigration are actually the ones doing things to make public support for immigration start to collapse.
Another policy, legal pot in Canada. It was legal last October. Ontario finally gets legal pot stores April 1st, but only a couple in Toronto. And amazingly, one of the people they interviewed said the prices in the Toronto stores are twice what he pays his illegal dealer for pot. Is this a classic case of government rolling out something very poorly? And plus, how much government revenue was lost because they didn't have legal pot stores to go when pot was made legal in October?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, to me it's appalling. I think the problem is so many politicians in Canada have kind of this very, call it the nanny state, or maybe not oppressive, but kind of authoritarian, centralizing instincts. And so when something's legalized, the first thing they think is, okay, how can the government control this and control distribution and all that? I think really it should have been left to the private sector. By legalizing, you're basically saying people are not going to go to jail for possessing it or for selling it up to a certain amount. So just leave it to the private sector. Maybe you need to boost police resources for a while to make sure that some regulations aren't being broken. But yeah, leave it to the private sector. This whole idea where the government tries to control everything, it's not going to work. They just have to, I think, let go of it and just have some respect for individual Canadians making their own choices. As long as the law is being followed, let the private sector handle it, because the government obviously they have no idea what they're doing.
Well, sure. Vancouver, I think, had something like 400 pot dispensaries. They've all been forced to close under the new legislation. And I'm also being told that the marijuana being offered in the government stores is not what people want. They want high THC content. Basically, what they're selling is a bunch of loco weed.
Yeah. Yeah, again, that's incredibly dumb, right? You've got 400 places, already have a relationship with customers, already know the product, they know how it works, they've got a customer base. and then you shut them all down to legalize it. I mean, only the government can come up with stuff that stupid. Just like what I saw on BC, where apparently Horgan is talking about providing relief for high gas prices, and then he said the federal government needs to take action to deal with supply. I mean, is he really that stupid? The guy who brings in total opposition to new pipelines and totally supports big taxes, and then, I wonder why oil prices are so high. What happened? Gas prices are so high, I need to do something about it. And then tells the federal government to fix it when he's against pipelines. So, yeah, I mean, cause and effect doesn't seem to be something that people in government seem to have a good relationship with.
Well, he's totally against the Trans Mountain Pipeline, which would bring refined product down from the Edmonton refineries to Vancouver and lower gasoline prices. They said Vancouver has to buy its gasoline from Cherry Point, Washington.
Yeah, it makes no sense.
Plus, what do you think is going to happen in the Alberta election?
Well, it looks like the United Conservative Party is going to win. I mean, there's always craziness, I guess, that could happen in the last few days. Some reports have said there's been a bit of tightening in the polls, but it looks like Kenney got pretty good marks in the debate. Didn't shift too many perceptions. More people saw him as winning it than others. But again, it's what they say, 2 out of 3, right? If you win Edmonton and Calgary, you win the election. If you win rural Alberta and Calgary, you win. So last time the NDP did very well in Edmonton, did pretty well in Calgary. This time, United Conservative Party, all the polls show them leading in Calgary, most show them trailing in Edmonton, and then they have a gigantic lead in rural Alberta. So looks like they're on track for, it would seem, a pretty solid win. I mean, again, things could always change in the last few days, but I just think, especially the news that's come on the past few days, Notley trying to say, we're going to get the pipeline soon. I mean, she's been saying that the whole time. None of her promises have turned up. And then the report I mentioned earlier, where there's going to be almost 13,000 jobs lost in the energy industry, it just doesn't look good for her. I don't think they're not going to get enough votes, I don't think, to hold on to power. So, I think Albertans they tried the NDP experiment, didn't work out too well, and I think they're going to move on.
Spencer, thank you so much for chatting with us.
Yeah, it's good talking to you.
My guest has been investigative reporter Spencer Fernando. You can find his articles at SpencerFernando.com. If you have any questions for Spencer or any of our other guests, you can send them to info@howstreet.com. I'm Jim Goddard. Thank you for listening.
Comments made on the Goddard Report and TalkDigitalNetwork.com are an expression of opinion only. The Goddard Report is available online and mobile at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. The Goddard Report is a production of Howe Street Media Incorporated.